Bob's Burgers. I'm certainly no stranger to the show. You may have even been able to catch some references in the background of some of my videos. I'm especially entertained at some of the puns that Bob uses to name some of his Burger of the Day specials, many of which are available in the official Bob's Burgers Burger Book. But there's one part of the burger that by volume is actually most of the burger Bob doesn't make himself in his restaurant, and that's the bun. I'm going to show you how to make Bob's Bet It All on Black Garlic Burger served on beautiful, soft, homemade buns, and I'm going to pair it with Belhaven Scottish Ale on this episode of Bacon to Brew. Before I could get started on the burger, I need to make the dough for my buns. I'm weighing out 400 grams of bread flour and then stealing 2 tablespoons to make my tangzong. I'll put those 2 tablespoons along with 100 milliliters of milk into a pan and heat it under low heat. Tangzong is a method used for Japanese milk bread that involves cooking a portion of the flour before adding it to the rest of the dough. Since this flour will be pre-gelatinized, it'll continue to hold on to moisture, creating softer buns. Once it creates a dense, gummy texture, I'll remove it from the heat and set aside. Back to my mixing bowl, I'll add 40 grams of sugar, 9 grams of yeast, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'll then add 1 tablespoon of dough conditioner, which is another secret ingredient that will not only create softer buns, but will help them remain softer longer. 150 milliliters of milk, 1 egg, and finally my tangzong mixture. I'll move this to my mixer and begin mixing until everything comes together. This is a very enriched dough, so I'm going to mix it for quite a bit before I even start to add my butter. The butter would inhibit gluten formation, so I want to wait until the dough is nice and elasticy before I even start to add it. And now that my dough is looking good, I'm going to add 60 grams of butter, just adding a little bit at a time, and continue mixing until everything gets absorbed. And once all the butter is incorporated, I'll remove the dough from my mixer and do a few slap and folds until I get it into a cohesive ball. This dough is very soft, but there's so much butter in it, I don't really have to worry about it sticking. I'll just keep rolling it until it looks nice and tight and then place it into a greased bowl. I'll cover it and let that rise for about 2 hours. Then after punching the dough down, I'll divide it into my individual buns. My target is 100 grams each, but the best practice is to weigh the whole thing and determine how you could divide them evenly. I'm just going to do 700 gram buns, and then the 8th one is going to be a tiny bit smaller. To shape these into buns, I'm going to take them one by one and flatten them out on my counter. Again, I'm not using any additional flour because the dough is enriched enough that it's not really sticking. And then I'm going to go around the whole thing, keep folding the ends over until it forms a spherical shape. I'll flip it over and roll it until it turns into a tight ball. Then place it on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper and dusted with semolina flour. I'll repeat this process for all my buns. And this is actually a case where not dusting my countertop helps, because when I roll it around, it actually sticks to the counter a little bit, helping create that tension. If I had put flour on the surface, the dough would just be sliding around. Once they're all in a tray, I'll gently press them down to try to flatten them out and create that more traditional hamburger bun shape. I'll place them all in a proofing bag to let them proof for another 30 minutes at least. It's also important to give them plenty of room on the tray to rise. I'm kind of pushing the limit by putting 8 on the same tray. Just before baking, I'm going to brush them with an egg wash made from 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of water. That should help with browning and give them a nice shine. If you were to add any toppings, now would be the time. I'm just going to add sesame seeds to 3 of them. Then into a 375 degree oven for 15 to 18 minutes. And when they're done, they should have a beautiful golden color. I'll pull these out, but before they cool down, I'm going to brush them with butter. The butter will give them a glossy shine, but it will also soften the crust and give them a buttery flavor. Then I'll move them to a cooling rack where they'll await our finished burgers. You'll have to admit, as good as Bob's Burgers look, these fresh buns will elevate them to the next level. Now let's move on to what makes the Bet It All on Black Garlic Burger unique, and that's the black garlic mayonnaise. I'll start with half a cup of mayonnaise, which is about 110 grams, and then get out 1 bulb of black garlic. Black garlic really is an amazing ingredient. It doesn't have any of the bite that raw garlic has. It involves taking garlic and aging it for weeks between temperatures of 140 and 190 degrees. The sugars will slowly caramelize, and the amino acids will create a lot of umami flavor. And you end up with a product that's dark, sweet, and has flavors of molasses and tamarind. And by the way, this sounds like an ingredient that could only be found at very specialty stores like the one where Bob found it. But I got this at my local Walmart. Seriously, just right there on the shelf. So make sure you keep an eye out for it. I'll peel the skin off, which comes off much easier than fresh garlic. The Bob's Burgers cookbook says to mix this up in a food processor with the mayonnaise. But black garlic is so soft that I found that roughly chopping it and pressing it with a knife will turn it into a thick paste. I'll add that to my mayonnaise. The recipe also says to add sriracha to taste, but I want to be very careful with that, so I'm just going to add a few drops. I want to focus on that umami flavor of the black garlic, and I don't want it to be too spicy. For the burgers, I'm using an 80-20 blend of ground beef, and the recipe indicates 4-ounce patties, but that's pretty small for me, so I'm doubling it and going with 8 ounces. The seasoning is going to be pretty simple, just some salt and pepper, and right onto the grill. We'll give that a flip. The recipe mentions the use of fresh mozzarella cheese, which seems like an odd choice, but I'm going to go with it. I'll close that lid to give the cheese a chance to melt, and when I hit my desired temperature, I'll remove it and we're ready to assemble. I'll slice my bun in half, generously butter each side, and I'll just gently toast these until they're golden brown. The recipe only mentions putting the black garlic mayonnaise on a top bun, but I'm going to go ahead and hit both sides with it. Then it gets a thin layer of baby spinach. Then our burger. I'll generously slather that top bun with more black garlic mayonnaise. Then I'll put that right on top. Finally, I'll pour myself a beer and we're all set. To bet it all on black garlic burger, straight from Bob's Burgers. Thick 8-ounce patty topped with black garlic mayonnaise and served on a soft homemade bun. I did end up overshooting the temperature on my burger, hitting medium well as I was distracted by the overheating warning on my camera. I guess iPhones don't like being too close to a grill. But this is still a beautiful burger, straight from the mind of Bob Belcher. And it goes great with a malty ale, like Belhaven Scottish Ale. Scottish ales, I think, are some of the best beers to have with a burger. They're brewed with minimal hops, but what they lack in hop, they make up for with using some of the best malts in the world. It has a biscuity flavor and even a touch of roast. Not as much as, say, a stout, but it definitely has a little bit of that coffee-like roastiness to it that goes great with the char on the burger. And that black garlic adds a little bit of umami and a slightly fruity flavor that I think goes really well with that malt character and the really subtle Scottish ale yeast. Belhaven, of course, is historically one of the great Scottish breweries, being founded in 1719. But beer has been brewed at that site going all the way back to 1150 when it was a monastery and beer was brewed there by monks. To be honest with you, I'm perfectly fine with a medium well burger. But the one part I can't compromise on is the bun. A dry burger bun just ruins it for me, but these are beautifully soft. That Tangzong method and the dough conditioner kept these buns soft even to the following day. I think people underestimate how much impact a great bun could have on a burger. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join me next time when I take another one of my favorite beers and try to bake the perfect pairing.